Okay, I'm going to be talking about various social media platforms and companies banning Donald Trump from their platforms and what that means for our country. So let's start where it all started with the attack on the Capitol. So on January 6th, far right supporters of Donald Trump, our 45th President of the United States, led a march on the U.S. Capitol. If you are unaware, the U.S. Capitol houses the Senate and the House of Representatives, whose main whose main sorry whose main job is to pass laws. And on January 6th, they were actually doing the duty of counting the electoral votes, which would certify that Joe Biden was the 46th president of the United States. They stormed the Capitol in hopes of taking back an election that had been quote unquote stolen. They broke into the Capitol with force, putting many lives in danger and provoking chaos. Here you can see a man, and in his hand he has Speaker Nancy Pelosi's podium, which shows that they also stole things from the Capitol. Now, you might ask why they would do this, and it is because Donald Trump, our president, had said for the last 2 or so months that the election had been stolen and that Joe Biden had cheated his way into winning and that he himself, Donald Trump, had won the election. This leads to a lot of different social media platforms reaching out and banning Donald Trump from accessing their services. A list of these includes Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Amazon, Snapchat, Reddit, Twitch, Liquid Web, and Shopify. So the big one from this list, which sticks out to me and many Americans, is Twitter. So if you don't know, Twitter was Donald Trump's main way of accessing and communicating with his supporters. And he was very active on Twitter throughout his entire presidency and throughout both campaigns. I'm just going to pause this because I'm not sure how long it's been recording. Okay, so now that we have acknowledged that Twitter is probably the most consequential ban that he received, let's take a look at what they said. Now, before we do that, each platform had its own particular reasoning, but the majority included that Trump had violated their terms of service, and their bans were an effort to lessen the chances of further violence like the violence that we saw at the Capitol. So let's take a look at the statement from Twitter. Twitter says, after close review of the recent tweets from the @RealDonaldTrump account and the context around them, specifically how they are being received and interpreted on and off Twitter, we have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement of violence. In the context of horrific events this week, we made it clear on Wednesday that additional violations of the Twitter rules would potentially result in this very course of action. Our public interest framework exists to enable the public to hear from elected officials and world leaders directly. It is built on a principle that the people have a right to hold power to account in the open. However, we made it clear going back years that these accounts are not above our rules entirely and cannot use Twitter to incite violence, among other things. We will continue to be transparent around our policies and their enforcement. So what does this mean? Let's break it down. Okay, I'm just going to end it here and start recording again. Okay, so what does this mean? Basically, Twitter is saying that they have banned Donald Trump due to his violations of their terms to service, specifically around inciting violence. It also talks about how their main goal as a platform, or not their main goal, but their main goal in terms of elected officials and public and world leaders is to give them an easy way to access their supporters. But they also go on to say that the accounts are not above their rules entirely, and that they still have enforcement over these accounts, no matter who runs it, which I think is a very good thing to think, as it is also kind of about what impeachment is about and how nobody is above the law, which overall is a pretty simple, overall good thing. So here's what the left, which are the Democrats, think. They think that it is beneficial and what we needed, and it's a promotion of the truth against the new fake news epidemic that we're seeing affect a lot of people. But they're also saying that this ban was too late. Now, what this means is a lot of people are saying that they're not actually in it to do good, that they just did this to be on the right side of history and to essentially just be on the right side of history. Now, they're saying that the platforms are doing this because of how long it took to ban Donald Trump on these platforms, and this shows to some people that they were just in it for the money and they were trying to grab as much money out of accounts from him as possible. The last thing that they think is that it's dangerous. So the danger comes from the social media platforms having an extreme amount of power over us in our daily lives, which we see here. Why is that the next slide? Sorry, hold on. Okay. This is what the right and what the Republicans think. They think that this is an attack on the First Amendment of our Constitution, which grants every U.S. citizen a freedom of speech. They think it is censorship and silencing by the left. They're trying to censor and silence essentially the right. That they also think that their social media is overstretching its power to do this, and that it should just be more of a platform, and that they should not have taken this action. They think it's un-American, which relates back to the attack on the First Amendment. And they also, as well, think that it is dangerous that social media platforms have this much power. So let's talk about the power of social media platforms and why this is so dangerous. Social media and the internet is a main way for many Americans, including I, to get our information. And because they're independent companies, they have so much power over their algorithms and how they can restrict and benefit and promote their algorithm to promote specific information. Basically, all that means is that social media platforms have a lot of power over what information you can see, when you can see it, how you can see it, all of that. Another thing that comes into play is that there are no checks and balances for social media. So checks and balances are a very staple part of our US government, and they are how the three different branches of government keeps its own from taking over and having way too much power. For example, the executive branch, which is the president, can veto a law that Congress, which is the legislative, is trying to pass. So moving forward, what can be done today and tomorrow and every day beyond that to limit these social media and internet platforms? The main problem with this is how quickly social media and these platforms update and they progress. They're rapidly advancing. And why that is such a big problem is that our government works slowly, and that's a fact. It has been built to work slowly, and over time, it has been very good that it is working slowly. But our government has also never been faced with something that advances as quickly as social media and the internet is now advancing. So it's really interesting to see how our government will have to move quickly to try and combat what these internet platforms are trying to do. So to end on a lighthearted note, while this is a very serious issue and um, it's and it could have a large impact on our future, as all things, there's good memes that come out of it. So here are some of my favorites. I'm not going to explain the jokes because that just ruins any joke. So I'll just give you guys a little bit to enjoy these. And here are my sources, and that is it.